Good afternoon. I'm Karen Crawford, and Rick asked me to speak today about growing up with Jenny in the town of Montreal. I knew Jenny before she was Jennifer. When I first met Jenny, she called herself Jennifer. My first memory of Jenny was in a cast. She had broken her leg when she was about 4 or 5 skiing, and I remember going to visit and thinking how lucky she was. Wow, a cast, so cool. The Haywards moved to the town in 1964. Jenny was 3 and I was 4, and they lived on Dobie, right across the lane from us. In hindsight, the lane was a magical place in which to be raised. It was a place where it seemed every home had kids your age with whom you could play. The Cardinals also lived down the lane, and very soon, Jenny, Janet, and I became thick as thieves. We'd either be playing dress-up at the Haywards, or we'd be at Janet's or my house, playing teenagers and pretending that the IAC was our house. We had neighborhood games of soccer, baseball. We played Red Rover and hide and seek, and kids of all ages played together. In the wintertime, everybody skated. And the best thing about having the Haywards right behind us was that if Rick or Sue or one of my siblings was on the phone and you couldn't call over, you just went outside and yelled. In the summertime, Jenny and I lived at the town pool. Sometimes we'd pitch a tent and we'd bunk down with Jenny's transistor radio, listening to CKGN, and always very careful to make sure that we slept in our bathing suits so that we didn't have to waste time getting changed in the morning. Jenny was my best friend growing up, and by the time we hit high school, we were pretty much inseparable. Jenny and I both loved to laugh, and we had a lot of fun. There was much about Jenny that I loved. Jenny jumped into things with both feet, no half measures for Jenny. In 1974, Jane and Mark took Jenny and I sailing to Upper Canada Village on Labor Day weekend. It was raining pretty hard, and we were motoring all in the dark. We had on our rain slickers and matching hats because Jenny was always very fashionable. Jane and Mark were going to go below and have dinner, and Mark gave us specific instructions about which course we needed to follow. The only problem with following Mark's instructions was it wasn't really all that much fun. So Jenny realized that if we actually veered off course, we'd head right into the waves, and that would make the trip a little bit bumpier and way more fun. So that's what we did. But it didn't take long for Jane and Mark to figure that out, because Mark came up above pretty quick and redirected us. Music was a huge part of our lives growing up as well. During the school year, we'd go back to the Haywards at lunch, and we'd listen to Ziggy Stardust on Ricky's state-of-the-art 8-track. Jenny loved Elton John, and we'd listen to Country Comforts and Madman Across the Water on the family stereo. And we'd talk on the phone every night, calling each other when a great song was on the radio. Jenny and I pretty much lived at each other's homes. Now, my family had this very ugly and quite nasty dog at the time called Canuck. And Canuck knew Jenny about as well as he knew me. Anyway, Jenny was coming over to write a note, and I guess Canuck had a lapse in memory or something, and he was a bit of a psychopathic dog. Anyway, Jenny walked in the back door, and Canuck began to growl and snarl. But Jenny was on a mission, and she wasn't going to be deterred by some ugly, nasty dog, so she marched back across the lane, went over to her house, opened the fridge, and there sitting in the fridge was a very sizable steak. It was meant to feed the whole family. And Jenny took the steak. She didn't cut off a piece. She took the whole steak and went back across the lane and flung the steak into our dining room, and Canuck chased him to the dining room after it. Jenny swung the door closed, and she quickly left me a note and left. Well, Jane comes home, and she notices there's no dinner. So she says, "Where's the steak?" And Jenny looked up and said, "Oh, I gave it to Canuck do so. I had to write a note for Karen." I don't remember what the note said, but I'm pretty confident it was something very important, like, "Meet me at the Do." The Do was a local hangout and a place where Jenny and I had spent way too much of our high school time. As sometimes happens, Jenny and I grew apart after this time. And about 20 years later, I got a call from Jane asking if I would come to Montreal to celebrate Jenny's 40th. So I went down, and even after 20 years, I had no trouble catching up with Jenny and jumping right back in and laughing and giggling. I'm very grateful to Jane and Sue for including me in that night. Jenny was a huge part of my childhood growing up, and she will be forever in my memory.